What's up guys? Thanks for tuning in on today's video. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the difference between the LS3 engine and the L99 engine. The LS3 is associated with having a 6-speed manual transmission, while the L99 actually has a 6-speed automatic transmission. I'm going to go over the key similarities between the two engines, the key differences, and then I'm going to take these cars out on the road and drive them under very different circumstances, and then tell you guys which is better between the two of them and which is better during those circumstances. So we'll first start off with the similarities between the two engines. These are both 6.2 liter displacement motors. They are both made out of cast aluminum, and they both are 376 cubic inch motors, and that's pretty much it. That's the biggest similarities between the two engines. When it comes to the differences, there are a lot more to discuss. So in terms of numbers, both the LS3 and the L99 have very different horsepower numbers, torque numbers, and maximum RPM numbers. So we'll first start with the L99 engine. This comes from the factory with 400 crank horsepower. It's got about 410 pound-feet of torque and about 6,000 RPMs at the max. Compared to the LS3, the sister engine, this actually has 426 horsepower from the factory. It's got a maximum torque of 420 pound-feet of torque and a maximum RPM of 6,600. The biggest difference, aside from the numbers that I just shared with you guys, has to do with the active fuel management that comes with the L99 engine, which basically helps with efficiency and fuel management to not only give a better miles per gallon, but also to comply with standards and EPA stuff. In terms of miles per gallon, this only does about 2 miles per gallon better on the city, and I think about 5 on the highway, actually about a little less than that. The real difference is not so great. With the active fuel management, you get cylinder deactivation on the highway. This does activate to 4 cylinders at cruising speeds. Some people have complained about it being a little bit annoying, drive on demand. You know, frankly, you can always tune these to get a lot more of an aggressive stance and of course aggressive driving experience. The L99 uses a different camshaft, crankshaft, uses different pistons and valves. The LS3 really only has one feature to help with the active fuel management per se, and that has to do with the skip shift feature, which is basically from 1st to 4th gear under lower speeds. It is so annoying to have that, so I guess that could be the equivalent to some complaints that some L99 owners have. But of course, like the tuning situation that you could have on the L99, you can always buy the skip shift eliminator, which is like 20 or 30 bucks for the LS3 engine. Okay guys, so now that we've talked about the key similarities, some of the differences between the two of them, let's take these cars for a drive. Alright guys, so now we are driving in the city, and this is where I'm going to be bringing up the first point about, well, the key difference really between the L99 and the LS3 driving experience. And right off the bat, it is so freaking easy to drive this car. I mean, that's really what automatics are really made for, not only for a performance enhancement, but also in a alleviation to the driver when it comes to switching gears. And obviously with the automatic transmission, it is beyond easy to do. Right now we're coming upon some little bit of traffic here, frequent stops from lights and just other cars, and all I have to do is brake and accelerate. It's so much easier than what I'm used to. But clearly in a situation where you're driving in a metropolitan area, or just an area that has a lot of volume and traffic, you know, the driving experience is just so much easier. And, you know, frankly, it's just so much more relaxing. We're getting on the freeway now, and I think now would be a significantly better time to talk about how this car drives on a more performance-oriented situation. Let's try right now with on M mode. course, you have the paddle shifters here to really help out with the downshifting and... I'm gonna be honest, this automatic transmission compared to the competitors that I've driven, like the DCTs on the M3s and obviously the PDK on the Porsches, this thing is super lethargic. It does feel good though. It's really interesting, but it is a lot slower than what I thought it would be. I mean, it's almost laggy in a way, and you can always tune that out. You definitely can at some point. I'm gonna try now putting it on D and letting the computer do all the work. What a big difference, guys. Yeah, definitely if you leave it up to the computer, it's gonna shift a lot quicker. It's still not as fast as the examples that I gave you before. However, it is a lot faster than shifting by yourself. Ultimately, it's quite a difference between the self-shifting feature and the automatic feature. Automatic transmission is that it also just gives you so much more confidence. And I've always felt safer driving a automatic transmission car with high horsepower than I felt with a manual transmission. I mean, all day. All right, so now in stark contrast, we are in my personal vehicle with the LS3 V8 engine connected to the wonderful and very durable Tremec 6-speed manual transmission. Although the L99 was very fun and exciting, the LS3 with the 6-speed manual transmission is a completely different experience. Let's go ahead and get to it. You gotta love that startup. So right off the bat, before we get started with the drive, I do have an MGW short throw shifter that really makes the car feel so much more gated with the shifts. I have an entire review on that. Night and day difference. So it definitely enhances, I think personally, for the better when it comes to the day-to-day driving and of course the performance driving. So let's go ahead and get this thing moving. Purposely went out at a time that I knew was going to have a lot of traffic and a lot of headaches. With the automatic transmission, we saw that really the only thing you had to focus on was brakes and accelerator. That's about it. But the moment that you introduce a manual transmission, you have to engage the clutch, which is now a new part that you have to get used to. And if you don't do it accordingly, you get that crazy little jump and the jolt and the really uncomfortable feeling that you get with the manual transmission. And with the automatic, it's quite frankly very easy to do. You know, you just put it in D and hit the accelerator or don't, and it just starts driving off, and it's very smooth at the start. You know, the automatic transmission is just so much easier to deal with, and the manual transmission, well, not so much. You just have to understand that this car is annoying to drive in traffic, and I was doing it for 5 years. By year 4, I was done with the car. The commute to work was taking me 40 minutes or so to travel 7 miles. And on top of that, you have to add all of these things going on, you know, having to use your left foot. Then you have to shift the gear appropriately, but you have to make sure that you don't overdo it, because then you don't want to buck around and you don't want to make the ride uncomfortable, which it already kind of is, because you have to do all that work in the morning or in a time where you don't really want to be doing that. It's ideal for you to have a manual transmission car in a place that doesn't have so much traffic, and places where there's just going to be frequent stops, because it's just becomes a really annoying dance that you just have to learn. But the moments that you do get a little bit of a straightaway, it's always so enjoyable. We are met yet again with a parade of interruptions, and we're back to square one. I would say that happens about 80% of the time. Literally, having a straightaway, giving it a lot of gas, and then coming to a cluster of traffic and just people that are just absolutely clueless on how to drive. Happens all too much, and well, it doesn't help that I also have to get a nice little workout down here with the leg. All right, guys, so I want to talk about how scary it could be to have a manual transmission car when going up hills. I do this almost every day that I take the Camaro here. I swear, it's like low-key one of the scariest parts of my day. Oh shit. Success, baby, success. The automatic transmission by default is a lot more expensive to replace and to service, but the frequency of how many times you have to address it, the manual transmission all day. And that's because, well, there's just a lot of imperfections and certain situations where it just causes the clutch disc to just go out a lot faster than it would from an automatic transmission, because, you know, there's just a lot more force being used, especially in places with hills. Oh boy. So the manual transmission option is an entirely different driving experience when it comes to the performance situations and environments. Oh man, it just... Aside from the wonderful sound that is produced by the LS3 engine, and of course my straight pipe setup, driving a manual transmission car, especially with the Camaro SS, just validates how fun it is to drive this car. And it does it almost to a higher extent than the automatic transmission car. I mean, yes, sure, the automatic transmission is undoubtedly going to be the faster option, whether it's the L99 or any other situation, but there is just something so poetic about having control of your big 6.2 liter V8 that, you know, is really just hyperbolized when you have a manual transmission. It's a feeling that very, very few people can really say that they get when they get the L99. It's almost therapeutic to be able to have so much control over the car, and it just feels so much more engaging when you have that opportunity and that option with the 6-speed manual transmission. Another great thing about the manual transmission is the fact that you are always going to be looking to improve your shifting, and whether that's downshifting or upshifting, you're always going to want to improve it and get as fast as possible. So it creates like this challenge with yourself that you just won't be able to get with the L99 transmission, because it's always going to be there for you, and it's really going to let the computer decide how that works. But when it comes to the manual transmission, it really is an extension of your skill set. I mean, that's why it's so much harder to track a manual transmission, because there's just so many things that are going on at once. You have to make sure that you downshift appropriately to give yourselves the RPMs to really allow the car to enter and exit corners in an efficient manner. And you know, it's just so much more engaging and requires a lot more of a skill set when it comes to track and cornering and just driving performance as a whole. Well guys, there you have it. That is the full in-depth review and comparison video between the 6-speed automatic found in the L99 engine and of course the 6-speed manual transmission found in the LS3. Before I finalize this video and go into my final thoughts, I just want to let you guys know that regardless of what transmission option you choose, driving a 5th generation Camaro SS is an incredible experience that is always going to bring you some level of satisfaction and joy. So do not worry too much about which transmission option you want to go with. If you guys are looking for something a little bit more efficient, more comfortable, more practical, and arguably a lot faster, you might want to look at the L99, as that is probably the best transmission option that will be checking off those boxes. However, if you're looking for something a little bit more spiritual, more poetic, more engaging, and arguably faster, the LS3 with the 6-speed manual transmission is going to be the best bet and will definitely be checking off those boxes. Guys, if you found this video informative and somewhat entertaining, go ahead and hit the like button. It helps out tremendously with the algorithm. If you enjoy my content overall, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And last but not least, do not forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos, my how-tos, my comparisons, my reviews, etc. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.